Hello and welcome. I am A.M. Snyder from Snyder's Sunshine Art Studio, where creativity shines. With over 20 plus years of public school teaching experience, I bring step-by-step art instruction and ready-to-use art lessons to spark creativity in students and offer art teachers a much-needed reprieve. So let's create something wonderful together. And today, in this video, we have the clover or the shamrock, depending on what you want to call it. My understanding is that the shamrock is a type of clover, and then there's the four-leaf clover, which is supposedly a lucky weed. Yes, I'm going to call it a weed. It's a lucky weed. A.M. Snyder's yard is covered in clovers during the summer, and they actually have a little flower that pops out too. And then we have to yank them out because, well, they're not supposed to be where my prettier flowers are located. So with that, we are going to draw our overlapping clovers here, or shamrocks, and we're going to look at the different greens that we can produce with watercolor. And we're going to use some other materials to add some defined lines to our clovers. So let's make our own little clump of greenery here by following along with A.M. Snyder. We are going to start, first of all, with the larger clover in the front here. And if you saw my other two videos on how to draw clovers, four-leaf clovers as well as just a regular three-leaf clover, you would have caught on by now that if you use your fingers and you somewhat trace around your fingertips, you can produce the bumpy line for the what looks like you're making a heart symbol. And then we turn the paper and we do it again. Now in those videos I elaborate on how to make the clovers a little more fun with design and color as well. So now we have our four-leaf clover in essence. So now that we have our four, we are going to loop or curve them together. So, and I'm going to darken the lines here so that you can see more of what I'm doing. Now, I do have some extra lines, and if that really bothers you that you have extra lines, you can erase them. It doesn't bother A.M. Snyder. Okay. Alright, so I have my four-leaf clover, and I'm going to add a stem off to the side here. It's going to be narrow between these two lines, and as I go out, it's going to get wider. There it is. Now I'm going to add a clover that is just three leaflets, and it's going to be behind this one. I'm going to make it somewhat smaller, and I'm going to start with the letter C. Letter C, and then I can turn the paper, and of course I can make a backwards letter C. I can turn the paper and make the backwards letter C again. I am going to add another one right here, and I'm going to go in a different direction. So this one's more upright, this one is going to be to the side, and then it has a stem, and it has a stem. Now the one thing about having them overlap and having the stems go in different directions makes it rather interesting to our eye. It adds some motion to our vision here as we look at the artwork. Okay, so I have those. Now I'm going to use a three-leaf clover, but I'm going to do it with the heart, the two bumps for each leaflet. I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to make it somewhat smaller. So I'm going to bring my fingers closer together and go around my fingertips and do it over here. And this is going to be only three with my, the idea of like making a heart in essence. Okay, so now we have this one. Okay, those lines are really off there, but that's okay. And I'm just going around and cleaning up how I want this to look. And this one's going to have a stem, but first I'm going to close it off here. And there's its stem. Now I mentioned it having some flowers to it. So I'm going to add those. So if you look at this, they're little white petally things. So I'm going to add them like little tiny raindroppy shapes or ovals, just tiny little shapes that are circular in nature, that are not touching each other, and they're somewhat unified in size. But as I go up, they are going to get a little smaller, I think, just to make it look a little more interesting. Okay. Now again, they're not touching each other. Not touching each other. So I'm just going over them to make them look a little darker so that hopefully you can see them on the camera. They're like a clump of little tiny circular type shapes. All right, and then I'm going to add one over here too. Again, that one's going that way, this one's going to go this way, so they're going in the direction of a diagonal. And then I'm going to add like a stem. Using a zigzag, and then drawing the stem in. It's interesting, I decided to use this mechanical pencil because my children seem to have these everywhere now, and I'm finding I don't like how it gets stuck on the paper. So I'm going to go back to a regular drawing pencil. It's like, I'll give this mechanical pencil a try. Yeah, I'm not liking how the pencil lead, I don't know if that's the right term, is getting stuck. Alright, so now I'm going to put a clover in here. I'm going to use 4-leaf with the curvy line. So there's an overlap. And we have our curve, we have our curve, we have our curve, and we have our curve. And then this one has a stem that comes down. And then I am thinking that I want to leave it be. Yeah, I like it the way it is. Should I add one here? Alright, we'll add one here. We'll make it with the heart. And we'll make it 3 as well. So it's only one, no, we have two 4-leaf clovers here. Alright. Okay. Now we're going to watercolor, and I have in the set of watercolor, it is a watercolor set by Dixon, the company that makes the better pencils for school, let's say. But I believe the paint I have in here may be Prang refills, so keep that in mind as well. I don't know, you can see it's pretty beat up. I've had it for a while. Anyway, if you get the dollar store kind of paint, the inexpensive kind of paint, it works too. It's going to give you a brighter kind of take on the color, which could be really nice. I'll show you what I mean. This is the green from here, so we can use both just to play around with it. Okay, so again, we're going to use lots of different greens. I'm going to use my bigger brush here. I have my water cup over here off the camera zone. Should I bring it in just to show you that I'm using water? I don't know. Does that matter to you? Alright, so now we're going to use yellow-green. Let's talk about yellow-green. Yellow-green, I have some already mixed here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and make a puddle of yellow into my paint tray or palette. Puddle of yellow, so I have to add lots of water to the paint, pick it up, and then I'm scraping it into my mixing tray. If you don't have a paint palette, you can always mix inside of the lid of your paint. You can see how I did that with this one. You can also use different food container lids. I'm thinking of milk containers, water bottles, Gatorade lids, frosting container lids. You can do that in those. You can also use condiment where you store sauces or ketchup and mustard with lids. There's different ways you can do it that you can mix your watercolor. The lid is the convenient one, but then you don't want to, when you're finished, while the paint's still wet in there, close it, because that's just going to make a mess. You have to let it dry, or you have to clean it out with a sponge and paper towels. Alright, so I have my puddle of yellow, and now I'm going to add, now here's the thing, I'm making a tertiary color. Now, tertiary color, in my perspective, could be made by putting yellow with green. Yellow makes green, so you're adding green to the yellow, it makes yellow green. Or you can add a little bit of blue to the yellow, and by not having a lot of blue, which would make automatic green, it would make a yellow green. So this one here, I just added green. Let's try it with a little bit of blue and see if it stays to be a yellow green. It does. So there you go. Yellow green as a tertiary color can be made depending on the amount of blue you add to it. Alright, so I have a yellow green. Do I like that color? I'm going to add a little more blue. Is it going to be too green? Nah, it's still yellow green. And now I'm going to paint my picture. I'm noticing that I added some designs in here, and I didn't do that, so I'm going to do that before I paint now that I noticed that. I forgot that step. So in here, I think I'm going to add those hearts like I did in the original one. And then over here, let's add this extra clover in the inside. Like that. And we can add these raindrop, teardrop shapes. And then we can do some loop-de-loop things. Yeah. And add some circles in here. Now, if you're interested about some history behind the color green, or about some of the discussion about Ireland and the clover, you can visit my website at SnyderSunshineArtStudio.com, and I have a post there explaining it briefly, a history of Ireland, St. Patrick, the clover, and, well, some of the symbolism of green. So you should take a look at that. Alright, let's go on with our yellow-green now. What am I going to paint? Yellow-green. I think that I'm going to paint these in. And I'll paint these. Now, you don't have to paint the same things as I am, and you don't have to decorate your clovers the same as I did. So keep that in mind. Alright, I like that. I'm going to stop there. swirl, stroke, 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 and swirl, add stroke, add swirl, 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 add stroke, stroke, stroke. And I'm going to dip my brush, and I'm going to go right to the green. If I use a lot of water, my green will be a lighter value. So I can get some different greens with the amount of water I use. So I make it light. I'm going to make this light green here. I want to make sure to be careful that I keep it consistent, and if I need to add water to the paint to keep it that light value, I would have to. The other thing about our picture is that we have some variety because of the sizes of the clovers, as well as the difference with the curve and the double curves here. So we have variety because of how we drew the clovers differently. We have variety with the different greens, but it's also unified because we're using green. And it's unified because we're using the same themed object in our picture. So we have variety and we have unity, which are principles of design. When we're designing our artwork, we look at those things. Variety means different, and unity means the same, if you didn't pick up on that. So now this is slightly darker because there's less water. And I'm going to continue forward with that. And as we go on, it's going to get darker. So down here, I'm going to make this one a little darker. I could add water to it and make it light in the end if I wanted to, but I'm actually fine with it getting darker just to add some of that difference, that variety in our greens. Now, I want to use that other set of paint so you can see the difference of the green in the end. And then I'm also going to use the tertiary blue-green too, so you can see how that plays out. Yes, tertiary, there are 6 on the color wheel. So as you heard, there's yellow, green, and blue-green, and they're made with the secondary and the primary color. You can hear that when we say the title of the color. Blue, green. Blue is the primary, green is the secondary. Alright, let's go into this $1 inexpensive set and see how the green is different. And we will paint this one. You can totally see how that green is different already. It also, I can tell how it's going on to the paper. I want to say it's like more slimy, or smoother in the end. And I don't know what's better and what's not better. I think that the more expensive is supposed to be better because of how it soaks up into the tooth of the paper, how this more, I guess it's sitting more on top of the paper. It's still seeping into the tooth of the paper though, the valleys, the pits. And with the dollar store brand of paint, you can mix those just like I did with the others. You can do the same exact thing. You can make light and dark values. It might be a little more difficult because of how this paint is, but you can still do it. And you can also make the tertiary colors when you mix. Okay. I was going to add water, but I'm thinking I do want this to be as dark as it can be, and that's looking like as dark as that green's going to be, and that's okay because I'm going to do some other things with it. Alright, so we have that green on there. Now, let's go ahead and make that blue-green. So we have our yellow-green, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more blue. Just add more blue. That was a lot of blue. And, well, it's going to become blue-green. So there it is. Alright, so I add that to one of our clovers here. It's interesting. It looks kind of olive. I wonder if there's been some black. I know my yellow was a bit dirty, so I wonder if that black played a part into it. And that's a possibility, actually. The black could be mixed with it and create a shade. It's a shade of blue-green now. We can make another one. We'll make another one. But that gives you a trick, too, to make a different kind of green. I keep wanting to do that. Go into that blue. You add black, just a little bit, because if you use too much black, it's going to be black. But you can always mix a little bit of black, and that would give you a shade of green, a darker green, other than the amount of water to give you a dark green. Value is the lightness and darkness of a color, so you could do that. Alright, so now that I did that, let's do this again, because I'm trying to get that color, and that color I got from taking yellow. I'm going to use this yellow because this yellow has some, what I think is black in there. We're going to put our puddle of yellow. It takes some time. We add water to it to make that puddle. Alright, and now I'm going to take some green and add it. And add a little bit of blue. A little more blue. Add some green. Add some blue. Alright, so now we have our blue-green that I originally wanted to use. I should move this over here because I'm painting with my right hand, so it makes sense to, instead of reaching across like that. So keep that in mind when you're organizing your supplies. Now if you're sharing with somebody at an area, then you have no other choice but to reach over. Alright, so as I'm painting here, I'm thinking, okay, it looks like I'm pretty sloppy. And you know what? That's absolutely fine. You don't want to be too sloppy. Because, as I said, when it's dry, we're going to go back and define the edges. Okay, so let's take this and go in here. Make that stem darker. Add a little dark there. Okay, and then I'm going to use what's remaining here to paint this one. Now, when you are using watercolor, it is best to jump around. If you've noticed, this is what I did. I used all that light color, I jumped around. If I paint right next to something that's already wet, you can see it kind of blended in there. So if it's wet, and then you paint next to it, it can make what you originally painted bleed into what you're currently painting. So something to remember when you're watercoloring. Okay. If you heard a dink dink, I apologize. It's my phone. My daughter is roller skating with my husband. And they have his niece's son, who is about 4, is out there roller skating too. And he's not really roller skating, he's just shuffling his feet in the plastic skates. I saw a little video. I don't know about you, but if you have roller skated, bravo for you for putting wheels on your feet. That is not something that A.M. Snyder is willing to do. I am a scaredy cat. Alright, I gotta use this blue, this green, and make it super dark here. Apologize about my phone yet again. And then I'm going to take this color that we happened to make that had a little bit of black in it, and I'm going to paint in here, like this stem is behind that one, and it's coming down this way, and it's going to disappear back here. And the same with that, and it's going to be what it's going to be. Okay, so now the next thing is to paint blue around everything. So that's a bit time consuming and tedious. I'm going to start here, and then I'm going to edit the video so you're not watching me paint with the blue. Now I do like this blue and the cheaper branded paint, so I'm going to use it. And I'm going to be very careful and paint around all these little shapes that I drew. Okay, so I'm careful and paint around them. And then after I do that, I touch that green and it bled into the blue. Now I could fix it, or I could leave it alone. And you know what? I believe I'm going to leave it alone. To fix it, when it's drying a little more, I could add some water and kind of bleach it out or blend it out. So again, I'm painting around these with the tip of my brush now. And then I will come back to you when the artwork is dry and show you how to clean up the edges with a variety, going back to the word variety, of materials. So ink pens, watercolor, markers, crayon, any extra materials you have to clean up the edges and make it look super special. So let me finish through with this, and then the video will be edited and I'll come back to you, and the picture will be watercolored with the blue background.
Hello, this is A.M. Snyder. I appreciate that you had followed along in part 1 of drawing and watercoloring our clovers with the variety of green. After editing the video, I decided to make a separate video, part 2, of the lesson in order to clean up the edges and enhance our artwork. So please look for the follow-up video. And as art teachers, we know that in essence, this would be a 2-class period lesson, since we have to let the watercolor dry before allowing students to draw on it or glue or paste anything to it. And as a student, you have an opportunity to go get a snack or drink some water or go watch something briefly or whatever you enjoy doing, and then come back and shine some additional creativity into your artwork with A.M. Snyder in the second part of this lesson. Thank you again for viewing and following along with me, and I hope that you've learned something new and that you've enjoyed the process with me. I look forward to you clicking on the follow-up video and adding to your artwork. Thank you again for joining me, and don't forget to look for part 2. Until next time, or until you see the next video, I appreciate everyone who watches the videos. I am Snyder from Snyder's Sunshine Art Studio, thanking you for joining me.